Information
is being collected. Even if I have the particular sites turned off, there's still information being collected through some of these other passive systems that you've contracted with.
We get Wikipedia.
The algorithms are written.
God so loved the world, he sent his son so loved the world, he gave his life.
Do you then, do you go into their social media to try to determine what they might be doing on social media?
And you have my full commitment that we'll do that.
They're the people that write the parameters by which those who write the algorithms write the algorithms.
We do both, and but I do think
Google has described its ethic with these pithy, great statements. Don't be evil, do the right thing.
and some of us are many of these things, who are profoundly grateful to the freedoms and opportunities it offers. That leading Google has been the greatest professional honor of my life. It's a challenging moment for our industry, but I greatly appreciate you letting me share the story of Google and our work to build products worthy of the trust users place in us. Thank you for the opportunity, and I look forward to answering your questions.
Thank you. We'll now proceed.
Today, for any service we provide our users, we go to great lengths to protect their privacy, and we give them transparency, choice, and control. It is a powerful platform and provides smartphone for over 2 billion people. And as part of that,
consumers make use of. I use it to keep track of the number of steps I walk. I understand that service that one of your competitors provide. So I understand that the average consumer understands that Google will collect this volume of detailed information when they click through the terms of service agreements in order to use the Android operating.
Really important for us that that average users are able to understand it. This is why we do something called privacy checkup.
The average users use the service and the updates that are very frequently sent to us.
Beyond this, we actually we remind users to do a privacy checkup, and we make it very obvious. Every month, in fact, in the last 28 days, 160 million users went to their My Account settings, where they can clearly see what information we have. We actually give, show it back to them, and we give clear toggles by category, where they can decide whether that information is collected, stored, or more importantly, if they decide to stop using it, we work hard to make it possible for users to take their data with them if they choose to use another service.
User engagement metrics.
Absolutely, Mr. Chairman. We have a long track record of, we've always focused on long-term goals towards user satisfaction. We focus on their knowledge, happiness, success, and that's what we work hard to create. It is important to us that platforms like YouTube are viable over the long run. It's in our natural incentive to do so. YouTube is a place where users, advertisers, and content creators who make their livelihoods use the platform. And so we want to make this work in a sustainable way. There wouldn't be a difference based on any political reasons unless there are keywords which are of particular interest and the market determines it. So it's essentially a supply-demand equilibrium. It can lead to different occasions where, yes, there could be difference in rates. Yeah, I haven't looked at the specifics of it. Yeah.
So the result.
Let me assure you, anything to do with our civic process, we make sure we do so in a nonpartisan way, and it's really important for us.
Thank you. The chair recognizes the gentleman from New York, Mr. Nadler, for 5 minutes. New York, Mr. Nadler, for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Pichai. According to media reports, Google found evidence that, well, let me go with the other one first. Google found a bug in its Google Plus bug in its Indigo social media platform that could have potentially exposed the private data.
Congressman, we take privacy seriously. The bugs you mentioned are bugs. We found them by either doing an audit or using our automated testing systems. Whenever we find any bugs, we follow, it gets escalated to our Privacy and Data Protection Office, and we comply with.
Right, I'm not criticizing what you do. I'm asking.
It depends on the situation. We follow the requirements, and in that case, in the first case, typically we look at our legal requirements, but we go above and beyond to make sure we do the right thing for our users. In the first case, both there was no evidence data was misused, and we couldn't accurately
I understand all that.
Today, right now, if you've found a bug, and you've ascertained, once you've done the investigation and you've ascertained the users who are eligible for no Russia, as well as accounts linked to Iran.
And what specific?
We look for the origin of these accounts. We share and collaborate with law enforcement, other technology companies, and we essentially are investing a lot of effort and oversight in this area.
And looking ahead,
it's foundational to our democracy, and you have my full commitment that we'll do that. It's an important platform. We do want to allow for diverse perspectives and opinions, but we have rules of the road. We have clear content policies, and we have policies against many categories, and we are transparent about these policies. And when we find violations on our policies, we do remove those videos and handle content.
When you find violations, you what?
And if we find any violations there, we do take down content.
When you take down the content, do you note who put it up so you can flag future content from the same sources? Sources.
We look at it on a video by video basis. To the extent there are repeat offenses from a same account, we do take into account, and we know.
Thank you very much. I yield back.
Chair recognizes the gentleman.
Thank you very much. I yield back.
Congressman, thanks for the question. If I may,
That consumers make use of. I use it to keep track of the number of steps I walk. I understand.
see a wide variety of opinions
When
expressed
Mr.
across
Johnson asked a question
a
about
while, and there have been other projects which we've undertaken for a while, and we've never launched them too. So it could be a constantly exploring
And what is your policy regarding predatory advertisements?
direction. We find predatory practices on our platform. So
Present everybody, poor community. And how do you do that? You know, girl, be fretness. And how do you do that?
if there's a specific category of a product where we do both, and but I do think there's more we can do in being proactive, and it's something I'm happy to follow up and understand better. But it's an area and depending on the area we engage, and we support them through doing better. But it's an area I want to acknowledge that there's more to do, and that it's never done. And
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, I yield back.
Every night for 2 weeks would knock it out every day
Has knocked them out of some pretty high positions in life.
to look around and notice.
this was probably never even on your radar.
My chief of staff goes in shooting. You run off, you ought to be liable. And you're the one that has trusted them above any other entity. You ought to be liable when Wikipedia is liable. You ought to be liable when Wikipedia demeans and uses their political bias.
Even though I may be repeating some of this, but I'm not. The algorithms are written.
that's roughly correct. Yeah.
And so there isn't really any look at what their private public social media,
Wikipedia.
whose social media,
Wikipedia.
social media,
Wikipedia.
public social media,
Wikipedia.
whose social media.
Wikipedia.
But I made this point, and we can't look at their social media,
Wikipedia.
and we can't see the algorithms to understand the results of the work they're doing behind closed doors. And yet the public believes that it's an open forum where there's a balanced exchange of open access for information. Of course, it's not. And so I have said, we either need to know who they are and look at their social media.
Wikipedia.
And if that doesn't solve this problem, next step then is publish the algorithms. If that doesn't happen, then the next step on the line is.
Wikipedia.
The step on the line beyond that is.
Wikipedia.
I don't want to regulate anything, but neither do I want to see a society that's so polarized and so divided and so loaded that the will of the American people.
Wikipedia.
That looks like either where we are or the direction we're going.
Wikipedia.
And I would just finish it with this. I have a 7-year-old granddaughter who picked up her phone before the election, and she's playing a little game,
Wikipedia.
kind of game a kid would play, and up on there pops a picture of her grandfather.
Regarding predatory advertisements.
And I'm not going to say into the record
Is that actually being recorded?
what kind of language was used around that picture.
I applaud you for the work that you're doing to educate our young people.
And the gentlewoman will submit those in writing to us so we can submit them.
I'd ask you, how does that show up on a 7-year-old's iPhone
Contacts a double-click cookie.
who's playing a kid's game?
Congressman, iPhone is made by a different company, and so I mean,
It might have been an Android. It's just, it was a hand-me-down of some kind. I'd ask,
I'm happy to follow up and understand the specifics. There may be an application which was being used, which had a notification, but I'm happy to understand it better and clarify it for you.
okay, thank you for your testimony and yield back the balance of my.
Congressman, we realize privacy policy alone is not enough. This is why we prompt and give privacy checkups.
Right, right.
So, Congressman, it's a good question. And for example, we are sending email reminders for certain types of data that's being collected and asking you to go review your settings. And that's an example of the kind of evolution we are doing and we are implementing. We are looking at combining settings where we can so that it's easier for users. So we want to minimize the number of controls, but we want to match it with users have complex expectations too. For example, they want some of their devices to be private, but they are okay with some of their other devices being able to be used where location is aware, etc. So we are trying to match users' expectations. Users do tell us when they search for weather or restaurants, they want restaurants near their location and not somewhere else. And as you can imagine, if someone from Alabama is searching, they want information relevant to them. So that's what we are trying to meet. But I agree with you that we need to simplify this even more, and there's more work to do. And it's a constant effort we are undertaking. As I look into 2019, we'll be doing more changes to make things work better, and I'll take this feedback to account.
Well, and just one example my legislative assistant was showing me in the privacy policy where.
Yes, so for example, if it's YouTube, we have very clear teams which are responsible for YouTube content policies. And
They identified, is it possible for a customer to write to them and say, hey, here's a concern I have?
We give clear channels for content creators to, to raise concerns back, and we have clear avenues. And we also have had people who are responsible for these platforms, including content moderation up here, and I think they've consulted widely here too. We don't have any special agreements with respect to user data as part of preloading any application.
So if I understand,
Okay, and what is your policy regarding predatory advertisements?
And I can just think of you sitting as a teenager
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I yield back.
in India, thinking that this was probably never even on your radar. And I can just think of you
Regarding predatory advertisements.
sitting as a teenager
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I yield back.
And watch what's going on.
Regarding predatory advertisements.
in India, thinking that
I know those people, and they're Christians.
I understand.
this was probably never even on your radar.
Quote, you use Google service.
And a guy goes in shooting.
They're the people that write the parameters by which those who write the algorithms write the algorithms, 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 write the algorithms.
Wikipedia